because it is Women's Wednesday or Gyal Dem Wednesday, depending on how you like to call it. And we have been joined by the absolutely awesome Samah. Head over to www.vibesradio.co.ke because let me tell you, this woman is stunning. When she was walking down, all of our assistants were walking around like, Jesus Christ, what's going on here? And she is a lawyer. You're really, cracking a lot of stereotypes there, but please introduce yourselves.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Cheeky. Thank you for having me. My name's Nimir Samah. I'm coming all the way to you guys from Toronto by way of Khartoum, Sudan. I'm a lawyer. I'm in Kenya and exploring life in Kenya legally, socially, etc., etc.
I love that. We were asking the question today for our Adrenaline family, and you probably know more about it than Henna and I do. Do Kenyans know their rights?
Yes. Kenyans are very well informed. Kenyans are well read, they're well versed, and they are on top of their politicians. Something that Kenyans are very fortunate to be able to do. The discussions you can have from anyone from the Uber driver to the person, the askari, everyone knows what's going on in the country. Do they know their rights? That could be elaborated on, but they know what they deserve.
Okay, and that's what we were saying. Like, I think for us anyway, like if you just take me and Henna as a perfect example, we know some basics. We know, like, as a police officer, you're not allowed to enter my car.
Yeah.
But the deep things, like, you have been loitering. Okay, I can challenge it by saying A, B, C, D. We don't know that. That's me and Henna. We don't know that. So we were questioning whether, people have been educated enough anywhere in the world, but of course we're in Kenya, so we're speaking about Kenya, into how to challenge bad behavior using legal language.
No. The truth is people target, and by people I mean law enforcement, etc. They target people of certain socioeconomic classes because they know that they don't have access to education, and unfortunately that can also be seen in higher circles. We just don't have the discussions enough as Africans, like Pan-Africanism. Like, this is a Pan-African issue, and it's definitely a Kenyan issue that's very pertinent. Yeah.
Sure, I agree. I think we need to know our rights a lot more.
Vibes Radio, we rule the nation in this generation.
You're a lawyer. You are here right now speaking, you're here right now practicing law.
So, no, I'm not practicing because I'm not Kenyan. I'm here just more of a
advising, consulting.
Yes.
What was the process for you to come here?
Well, Kenya is really great in the sense where they are all about inviting young Africans to come and learn. And that's essentially what I'm doing. I was fortunate enough to come through the Canadian Bar Association.
Okay.
They have this program through Global Affairs Canada, which is actually something on the side that I believe African countries should be doing, to send young people from different professions to other countries in order to learn and have an exchange. So that's what I'm doing.
Okay, I like that. And then why Kenya?
Because Kenya is a great rubric for East Africa.
Yeah,
like
true.
For me, as a Sudanese national, Kenya has so many things that it embodies in its legal system that I believe young lawyers who are Sudanese can learn from and take back home.
I feel that. I feel that.
So, of course, in the 254 and you have studied Canadian law, what are some of the challenges that you see or when you try to check out the Kenyan law? What are some of the challenges?
Well, customary law. That definitely.
What's that for the layman?
Just, what your uncle and aunt say goes as law, over the real constitutional law.
Okay, I get that. So if they say something like, you must pay for me every single month, my rent,
or
my
the family,
whatever.
the family demands for this.
Yeah,
and you must.
then that is law.
Yeah.
That is African law. But that's interesting to me because that is African law.
Yeah.
Like, it might not be like the legal system, but that's law.
When you're told to do it, you're going to do it.
When you're told to do it, whether you're in Nigeria, Sudan, Kenya, you're told, bring me the meat. The meat will be good.
Meat, whether you like it or not. What?
I feel that.
But I never saw that coming. I thought like it's 2019. We are past that. Do you really actually face that?
Yes, absolutely. Inheritance rights for women.
Yeah, inheritance is a big thing. And for women, they're often left out. And actually, I was listening to Spice Radio, Spice FM the other day, and they were having a conversation specifically about inheritance rights. And actually, I was getting really frustrated at their conversation because some of the hosts were defending this kind of inheritance rights thing, saying the thought process behind it is that you marry a husband and then of course you're entitled. So why should a woman get the inheritance when, of course, when she gets married, she will be also entitled to her husband.
Yeah.
And I was like, but then when you enter a partnership, to be able to say that I potentially have my own if my parents pass away, and then what if you decide not to get married? You know, there are so many issues with that it's just flawed. Also, it puts a weird dynamic in a family, right? Because
Absolutely.
it means I know I'm the inheritor, you know, you need to sit down and you know,
And wait for my mercy.
exactly. If I feel like maybe I will dash you a goat. If not, you know,
I go stay there, so.
yeah, you're gonna stay
And you
there.
get nothing.
And you get at best a tap on the shoulder. Do not touch that dial. We are in the mix for the entirety of the show, and of course we are still joined by Samah, who is schooling us on all things law.
Vibes Radio, we rule the nation in this generation.
About noon, I've
That
been
is
waiting
Protege.
for my lady.
Oh, wow. Hello, this isn't reggae, and that is Protege about noon. Man, I love Protege. I love Lena Ike. I love Savannah. I love Naomi Khan. I love the whole contingent.
Indignation.
Yeah, the whole clique. In fact, I feel like Protege is looking more and more like Hugh Hefner. You know, like many hot women around him.
You have to take it.
Yeah, I had to take it there because there's just one Protege and then
God.
all these gorgeous, talented, incredible women, and it's Gyal Dem Wednesday. So shout out to the Gyal Dem.
But
shout out to the Gyal
But you know,
Dem.
say Protege is married though, right?
Doesn't matter. Let me tell you something. I am engaged. I would feel very uncomfortable if my fiance were traveling the world with those hotties. When I tell you I'd be turning up at random locations, it'd be like, oh, we're performing in deep New Zealand. I would turn up in that New Zealand show just there. Yeah, with a sign in the crowd. I wouldn't even tell people I was there. I would be in the crowd, in the audience, with a sign that boy is mine. Just something like that, just so you know. It's true. It's true. That's what you have to do. If you've just tuned in, welcome. We are here with Samah, and we are talking the law. Samah,
Yes.
how is your experience to the approach to human rights in Kenya versus maybe Sudan?
Oh my God. Well, Kenya is so far ahead. Obviously, there's amazing activists, lawyers across the continent, in Sudan and all these countries that have suffered under authoritarian regimes. In Kenya, however, they're heard more. There's more avenues for them to be heard. Obviously, you guys have freedom of expression.
In theory.
Exactly, in theory. But the concept's there, and it's respected at least by the Kenyan public to a certain degree. But the practice of human rights, it doesn't really exist in Sudan the way it does. Like that's why we had the toppling of our regime, right? 30 years under authoritarian rule. It's about time. Like, we need to live.
Yeah, no, you must live.
Yeah.
You must let them live and eat cake and wine.
Amen.
What has your experience of corruption been like in Kenya, though? Because I know you're painting a very positive picture, but for the youths on the ground, you know, of course, it's great that we can talk to you and compare with other countries like Sudan and have a more Pan-Africanist vision, but equally the guys on the ground are frustrated. Right now, Kenya is not economically in a great place, therefore not socially in a great place, not psychologically in a great place. And the messages that we get on social media each and every day are messages of frustration. Coming from Canada to here, how has corruption just hit you?
In every way possible, whether it's the guy that stops you in order to tell you don't have your seatbelt on, but you clearly do, and is trying to, you know, have you pay him off. And I'm like, bruh, like, my seatbelt is on. I can see it. Why can't you? You know, or like going to court and hearing that unfortunately some people have to pay court fees over and over because at one point they weren't being issued receipts. So there's no way of logging it, right?
And I think these are things about rights as well. These very small things, like if you go to court, make sure you pick up a receipt.
Absolutely.
So that, you know.
Yeah, and you know, the reality is people aren't told because someone has to benefit off of you not being told.
Sure.
Yeah. So the reality is, when it comes to corruption is rampant in Kenya and most of Africa because they are trying to criminalize poverty.
Yeah.
And by you doing so, you're going to continue to annihilate anyone who can't be included as a means of paying for things. And the way you do that is by continuing to take, and not giving them anything, including their rights, their right to live, their right to exist. Petty offenses, like that's a huge thing in Kenya. Like people are just
Loitering.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like he's 15 years old. Of course he's gonna hang out. He's catching vibes. Like relax.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But there you are giving him a fine that he can't pay. There you are giving him 6 months in prison. Are you joking? He's in school. You know, what does that do for him psychologically? What does that do for him in terms of education wise? Now he's behind. He couldn't even pay the school
And not
fees.
only is he behind, he's pissed.
Exactly.
He doesn't feel like he's part of a system that supports him.
Another angry black man.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
So in this line of work, Samah, what keeps you sane? Like, you know, you go to court, you know, unatetea watu, defend people and all that. What keeps you sane? Like,
Especially consider it's so emotionally draining.
yeah.
To be honest, that's a great question, and it's funny that you mentioned that because I'm still grappling with it. You know, I'm still young. I'm 29 years old.
Oh, there you go. Henna was asking off air, how old is she? How old is she? I was like, you can't ask a woman her age.
But I do ask.
But now she's told you without you needed
Okay.
to ask. I told you. It will come out.
We're edge mates, so we're good. We're all right.
There we go. Yeah, but the truth is, it's mental health is wealth, right? As I know, Cheeky will definitely second that. Working out, man. Like, if you work out, you're able to blow off steam, and having friends around you who you're able to talk to. Like, we had a girls' night, and we talked so much.
I was not invited. Why?
Because of
Of
your
course I'm not a girl, James.
genitalia. Something to do with your genitalia didn't really hit the criteria.
Next, please pass.
So
Next.
we're passing.
Okay.
So let me tell you something. In this girls' night, it was myself, Samah, a few other girls, and the amazing thing about women, and we talk about male mental health a lot, is that we did not touch the television. Was not on. There wasn't even music in the background.
It's true.
For 4 hours straight, we just chatted.
Yeah.
And that's healing. That's therapy.
That's therapy. Sister circles, man.
I'm telling you.
Amazing.
Henno, when's the last time you did that?
The one you left me out, so I can't even remember. So I'll have to go with that. When did you do it?
It was like a month ago. It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, probably a month ago when I did my last one, though I was locked out. So it's all good.
You're so silly. You're so silly. Let me ask you another question. Does the government do enough to protect its citizens against terrorism? Because there's been so many high-level warnings in Kenya, specifically because of the Somali border and what's happening in Somalia right now. Although Somalia is pretty stable right now, Sudan, you know, like, does the government do enough to protect its citizens against that?
No. This is like a really scary topic to talk about. You know, I'm coming from the West, so you can imagine the rhetoric. Everyone's like, oh my God, terrorism. I'm like, that's the last thing people are worried about.
Yeah.
People just trying to live.
Yeah.
And that's where I think the government really grapples with, so are we going to create infrastructure to ensure that people have healthcare, et cetera, education, or are we going to just put all our funding into securitization? It's tough. And no, they're not, you know, and Sudan, when it comes to that, no, not at all. We are still suffering from a regime that is very much infiltrated in the terrorist network. You know, we're trying our best. Our new prime minister is trying to undo a lot of the things in relation to Sudanese people and terrorism. And when it comes to Kenya, there doesn't seem to be enough being focused on that. It's like everyone's forgotten.
We spoke quite a lot about the Sudanese regime, especially when the government was toppled over. It was actually a whole day's topic for us. It would be great in layman's terms, because I feel like very often what we don't do well as Africans, because in the UK there's a European Union, there's learning from that. In the US, you're at the epicenter of everything. There's learning even just between Canada and America, and Australia and New Zealand. In theory, there's learning between them all. We don't do enough cross-learning on the continent. We seem to make one another's mistakes over and over and over again. So what happened in Sudan for someone who, you know, just basic, and what can we learn, lessons that we can learn for here to ensure that that never happens?
So essentially what happened in Sudan is prices of bread got really high, and that obviously affected most Sudanese, but in particular those in lower socioeconomic levels of living. And essentially, it was just like a boiling over. It was the thing that, the thing that broke the camel's
back.
Exactly. But it truly wasn't the only thing. Underneath it was a continuous infringement of rights, a continuous system that allowed gender-based violence, a continuous system that incited hate based on ethnicity. These are all things Kenyans can learn from.
I mean, these are things that Kenyans live with still.
Yes.
I remember when the prices of unga were going up,
Yeah.
the prices of sugar, and like you said, it affects the lowest. And let's not just prices. If you look right now, is what's happening with unga and how dangerous it is in terms of consumption, you know? So you're taking away one big option from people, and it's the most affordable option, and you're not giving an alternative. And tribalism is rampant. We see it on a daily basis, but we specifically see it when it's an election time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, speaking of Kenyan elections, I mean, post 2007, the Kenyan government needed to compensate the victims. And that hasn't really been happening. You know, I'm sure everyone knows about the BBI report. It's great, but if you speak to most Kenyans, they're like, okay, but you're not telling us anything we didn't know.
Yeah.
So let's not insult the Kenyan citizen,
Intelligence, yeah.
yes, you know, and the African citizen in general. Let us really, really take heed and put pressure on everyone.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's about survival. Bread and ugali and these things are about survival. And once I can no longer survive and I cannot breathe, we have a huge problem.
One final question before we take a little bit of a break for some Christmas music
And rapid fire.
and rapid fire. The Sudanese people were nothing short of phenomenal. The peaceful nature with which they overtoppled the government was absolutely inspiring. The consistency that they marched, protested, was nothing short of inspiring. We have a conversation on this show every single day. Kenyans seem to be quite lackadaisical. Things happen, and the Kenyan attitude overall tends to be, that's just gava.
And actually, they wait for 9 days. Talk about it online. After 8 days, it's done. People forget about it and move on.
Right.
What is it that can be done to inspire the Kenyan people
Yeah.
to say no is no, enough is enough? Like what happened in Sudan. Sudan people were being killed. People put their life on the line to change, for regime change. In Kenya, like you said, we have some of these deep-seated issues also that haven't been addressed. Tribalism, gender-based violence, all of these things exist here also.
Right.
What can Kenyans do to get behind messages and say, look, enough is enough?
I think Kenyans need to wake up. I mean, yes, you guys, you know, Kenya is doing fairly well compared to its East African brothers and sisters, but don't compare yourself to countries that are not doing well. Compare yourself to countries that are doing phenomenally well. Want to be like them, you know? Because the truth is it's easy to be placated by being like, oh, like, look at this country. They don't even have, I don't know, like, they don't even have the right to live, you know? Yeah, but you do, and you should take that a step further. It's all about socioeconomic rights. I don't know. For me, that's something I keep harping on, because the truth is once you can't even afford to eat, once you can't have a phone to access things you need to, you're going to be upset. And Kenyans aren't there. But once you start having those things taken away from you, it's going to be a whole different ballgame.
But it's a pity if we have to wait until these things are taken
Yeah.
away.
Until the last
Until the
minute.
last straw. Like, we can see, if anyone cares, Adrenaline family, we can see what has happened to our neighbors, our direct neighbors. Let's not let it get to a place where people are dying because they can't eat. People are dying because they cannot communicate. Our parents are struggling. Let's not get to that point. We should be questioning and challenging these things now, because we have more strength now. We have food to eat. We can continue marching. We have data. We can continue tweeting. We have access right now that if we wait until it gets to the Sudan, if you know anything about the Sudan protests, it was literally the most kind of basic form of protest you can consider. People walking on the streets, mamas making food in organized areas for people to be able to eat.
Yeah.
We don't, and the protests were word of mouth. This is going to happen here. This is going to happen there, because they did not have the means of anything else.
The internet was cut and everything.
Internet was cut. Everything else was gone. Why get there? Do not touch that dial. This conversation is juicy. We want to talk a little bit more about rights. And if anyone can be inspired. We've done our job very, very well. We are still here with Samah, and most importantly, we still have those blankets and wine tickets to give away. You're tuned into 104.5 FM.
Vibes Radio, we rule the nation in this generation.
Let me tell you something. I can't wait for this day to be over because for some reason, Heno has decided to sing throughout the entire show today.
And the ladies, the girl, them love my voice.
Well, that's not true.
Hey,
Samah is here. Do we love his
Samah.
voice?
I mean, the verdict's not out yet.
That's very diplomatic.
Thank God.
That's a legal
When is the
answer.
verdict coming out, Samah?
We'll see.
Oh!
She will not be tied down to a date. Heno is on you. If you've just tuned in, welcome to the Adrenaline Drive Time show. We are here with Samah, who has been schooling us all on all things law.
Yes, and before we let Samah bounce, we have to ask some little bit of rapid fire. And I'm going to ask you these questions, and you have literally 2 seconds to answer them. If
Not
it
even
passes-
less than 2
Less than 2
seconds.
seconds.
Try me,
Whatever
Hannah.
comes, okay. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I meditate.
Indoor or outdoor?
Indoor.
Dance or Afrobeats? Heels or
Afrobeats.
sneakers?
Heels.
Dog or cat?
Cat.
Jamaican food or Ethiopian food?
Jamaican.
You see?
This is too
Hot
much.
or cold?
My brain's lying to me. Like, none of this is true.
We start again?
Yes, let's.
Okay. What's the first thing you do when you wake up?
I meditate.
Indoor or outdoor?
Indoor.
Dance or Afrobeats?
Afrobeats.
Heels or sneakers?
Sneakers.
Dog or cat? Jamaican food or Ethiopian food?
Jamaican.
Hot or cold?
Hot.
Okay.
There you go. You got a revision. Samah, what are your parting shots? What words of encouragement, inspiration can you give to the Kenyan youth?
Stay woke. Y'all are smart. Y'all are valued. You're worthy. And you got to know what is yours by birth and what is yours by existence as just sheer human beings. Keep fighting for it. Don't ever, if you let them keep taking your rights, they'll keep taking and taking and taking, and you'll have nothing left.
Agreed. Gosh, that was woke. But first, Samah, you had a driver you wanted to big up.
Yes, Victor, you drive me every day to and from Karen. You were my savior when I just moved here. You listen every day and you always big it up. I'm bigging you up. Happy
Big up
holidays.
yourself. Big up yourself, Victor. Thank you very much for tuning in. We like that.
Vibes Radio, we rule the nation in this generation.